So without further ado, we'll move into session 3. Here's a peek at our agenda again. I know you guys have been looking at it. And with that, I'll move into our pathogens and indicator organisms with Chris. Chris is right here in the room with me. You ready to go?
Sure. My name is Chris Ekivan. I'm laboratory supervisor here at Eurofins Microbiology in Des Moines, Iowa. I've been working here for roughly 5 years, and we actually get a large amount of pet food clients and products here in-house, so hopefully that means we have quite a bit of experience with the matrices. So just quickly, the normal microflora of pet food is directly affected by ingredient composition, the environment where your products are manufactured, handled, and packaged, and some of the main ingredients in pet food products, such as animal proteins and grains, are well-known carriers of pathogenic organisms. And since we are dealing with, at least at our site, a lot of dry pet food products and treats, Salmonella is the pathogen that we see and get asked about more often than not, but we do also deal with El Mono as well. So how can we detect the pathogen of interest for you? Pretty much there are 2 types of methods of detection, I guess, or 2 ways to go about detecting, but rapid and traditional. And rapid detection methods are preferred, and we get those quite a bit due to the use of immunological detection of or PCR amplification of our pathogen-specific DNA sequences to detect the presence of our pathogens of interest after incubation in a non-selective enrichment broth to repair and any cells that might be present to detectable levels. So what this then allows us to get quick turnaround times and results in as little as 24 hours, depending on the pathogen and the method of detection. So traditional cultural methods are not seen or asked for after the initial enrichment step, and we mainly use these to confirm presumptive results after we've gotten a result on a rapid detection method. So it's kind of the cultural microbiological detection that people think of, culturing and streaking samples onto selective augers and things of that nature to verify the presence of that pathogen and to make sure that for whatever reason you didn't have any stray DNA lying in that sample that got that result per se on a PCR. And then we can also assist with the selection of methods based on your requirements and, of course, the product type. So next we're going to speak a little bit about indicator organisms. What do we use them for? These are mainly used to verify the effectiveness of cleaning and sanitation practices in our manufacturing environments, determine the frequency required of cleaning and disinfection, give you an indication of what your employee hygiene practices are, or a general indication of your product quality. So the first indicator organism that we get asked about quite a bit is Enterobacteriaceae, otherwise called EBAC or EB. And this is just a large group of organisms with similar characteristics, usually gram-negative, glucose fermenting, all of a similar shape. And we typically see less than 10 or no counts in a finished product. And this is usually, if you do have more than this or higher counts, more than 100 CFU per gram, it's usually indicative of post-processing environmental contamination. And the methodologies that we use can usually get a result for this organism in as little as 24 hours. And coliforms is another indicator organism that we see. It's a smaller group of similar organisms. Actually, coliforms is in the family of, a lot of the coliform organisms are in the family of EB, and we also typically see less than 10, once again, CFU per gram in finished product. It's also indicative of post-processing contamination, and once again, we can get results as soon as 24 hours, depending on the methodology that is requested or that you require in that product. And E. coli is also a coliform and in that family of EB, more specific obviously to that specific organism. We only see less than 10 CFU in a finished product. What sets this organism apart from the other two is that it's usually indicative of fecal contamination, usually due to poor employee hygiene, because E. coli is normally found and regularly found in the intestines of warm-blooded mammals, such as humans. So usually high counts of E. coli could be indicative of poor hygiene practices. And we can also get results as soon as 48 hours, depending on the methodologies that we would use. And our last indicator organism is aerobic plate count, and it's just a general plate count. It's not specific to any type of, it doesn't really tell you much. It's not a specific safety indicator. We usually see in products that we handle 10,000 to 100,000 CFU per gram, and it's a product quality and process control indicator. And the really important thing to know about attempting to use aerobic plate count as an indicator for your product is that it's very important to establish what is a normal range or a baseline through shelf life testing or what have you, regular monitoring, to determine what is normal for your product, to identify when your process is out of control or something has changed in your product. And we can also get results in as little as 48 hours with these methodologies. So in summary, pathogen and indicator organism testing in finished products and environmental samples are critical to your product quality and safety. And using appropriate technology and methodology, we're able to provide our clients with accurate results as quickly as possible.
All right, thank you, Chris. So before we keep moving forward into a shelf life with Carrie and Brett, I have one final polling question for our audience about environmental monitoring programs. So all the indicator organisms that Chris was just referring to are obviously a way to check the effectiveness of the preventive controls and good manufacturing practices that Gary addressed earlier in the presentation. How are you putting those into practice? Do you have an active environmental monitoring program? Are you using it to trend these indicator organisms and see what's right and what's wrong for your facility? All right, just a couple more seconds. So everyone's aware we did beat 50% on this one. People must be really excited about EMPs. I'm going to close the poll and I'll show everyone's results. So mostly yes. A fair amount of no, maybe that's because this doesn't apply to you. And a lot of people are working on it. So obviously, we recommend regular checkups of your environmental monitoring program. It's great to review that regularly. So maybe in progress just means that you're revisiting yours right now. With that, I'm going to hide our results and I will move forward into shelf life. Back with Carrie and Brett.
Thank you, Sarah. So if you're just joining us, I'm Brett Berg with the Nutrition Analysis Center here in Des Moines. I'm one of our project manager specializing in the pet food industry. Now, focusing in on shelf life, working with newer clients or startups, it's not uncommon for Carrie and I to get questions of, here is my product, can you tell me what my shelf life is? What's the date I can put on it post-manufacturing? And as much as we'd like it to be an easy answer, it isn't always as such, because we do tailor-make all of our studies per client and per matrix. But we do have several ways to indicate what a good shelf life would be, including rancidity, label claim validity, and microbial growth. We'll go over a few of those here. Now, to start, we have rancidity. And a common question is, well, what is rancidity and what does it mean for my product? So rancidity is the oxidation of the lipids or the fats in the product. This results in undesirable sensory attributes or organoleptic sensations, so bad smell, bad taste. It has a loss of palatability for your pets. As many of you know, they have much higher susceptibility to taste and scent than we do. So while product may not seem overly poor to us, our pets do have sophisticated enough palates to notice the difference. Additionally, rancidity does have potential health risks, which can include digestive upset, inflammation response, formation of free radicals that can damage the cells. And this does have a direct effect on product acceptability over time, not only to your customers, but by regulating bodies as well. Now, a little context to the graph that we have down at the bottom. Our clients often are curious how we propose to proceed with measuring rancidity. And our approach is generally use of both a primary indicator as well as a secondary indicator. So as I had mentioned previously, as these fats oxidize, they form into what are called peroxides. And as you may notice on that curve, it is a bell curve. So it will go up, and then following rancidity, it will go back down as these oxidize further into ketones and aldehydes, which are measurable via this secondary indicator, pianicidine value, which measures those, which will level off. So if we start at the beginning of your product and are measuring that peroxide value as well as that pianicidine value, then we're in pretty good shape to have an exact timeline for when your product would be considered rancid.
So with regards to other shelf life considerations, obviously rancidity is a key one for products that contain a high amount of fat, but more broad spectrum, all products, quote unquote, most products have some sort of nutrient claim. So your final finished pet food, that's supposed to be the main source of a diet, or supplements that have vitamins or fatty acids, all of those make nutrient claims on the packaging. So when we're evaluating the shelf life of those products, it's imperative that the product start point and the product end point and the points in between all have enough of that particular compound to maintain the claim validity. So if you're claiming vitamin A, whatever you're listing on your label, there must be enough vitamin A in that product at the end of the study to support that claim. If there's not, you can't make that same length of shelf life claim, essentially. So compounds can degrade due to several things. Vitamin A specifically is susceptible to light. There are certain compounds that will interact with each other during the process over time. You run the risk of oxidation from packaging. So if you're if you're partaking in a packaging switch or formulations change, your overall shelf life of your product could be impacted. And not only that, but the storage conditions of the consumer should be considered in these situations as well. Not all of your consumers live in a climate like we do here. I'm in Iowa, and so it's pretty moderate temperatures for the most part. You do sometimes have clients in tropical situations or areas where they might have a higher humidity or higher temperature. So it's important to consider all of those factors as well when you're talking about nutrient claim validity and shelf life over time.
Also, we have susceptibility to microbes and microbial growth within your product over time is a concern, as has been noted several times within this presentation. There is zero tolerance for pathogens, as these products are generally handled within the home by caretakers, so of course handled by humans. So it is a key thing to note over the life of a product. So to determine many of those, water activity is an important aspect to maintain. It's the water readily available to the microbes that could stimulate growth, as well as the pH evaluation, another key factor that could stimulate or hinder growth of microbes. Pre-processing considerations, as we keep coming back to this as well, your environmental monitoring practices within your manufacturing facility, also great ways to hinder microbial growth within your final product.
And we listed consideration of ingredients as well. That plays a key role because when we're looking at the formulation of the product, there are certain things that will help bind up some of that extra water and help keep the water activity low throughout the duration of the product. But you also have to, in addition to things like pathogens, be considerate of items like yeast and mold. That's important over time, especially if you have a higher moisture product with closed packaging. So in summary, shelf life determination is greatly impacted by rancidity, nutrient claim validity, and microbial growth. So you want to make sure that food safety is a primary focus with your shelf life, that you're not selling something to consumers that could potentially make their pet sick or somebody in their home sick, a person in their home sick. And you want to make sure that that product still has the same nutrient content at the end of its shelf life as it did at the beginning, because in most cases, as you all know, a lot of times that this is the sole diet for a pet and they're not getting any nutrients from other items. Again, nutrient claims must be met throughout the product shelf life to ensure that those pets are getting all of the vitamins and minerals that they need to sustain their health. And product suitability for microbial growth will certainly change over time, and so that should be monitored closely as well.
All right. Thank you, guys. So next I want to talk about on-site testing with Karen. Karen, I know we did a mic check on you earlier. Are you still there?
I am.
All right, and you sound good. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name is Karen Gerwitz, and I work with Eurofins QTA division. QTA provides rapid on-site testing solutions using near and mid-infrared technology. I have been with Eurofins going on 4 years, and some of the challenges in any production process, especially pet food, include the time for real-time testing information, when most test methods are time-consuming. So when making decisions, you need good, reliable data to do so. And if you're waiting 2 weeks for a third-party lab to provide that data, oftentimes it's too late for your needs. So near infrared helps to bridge that gap, allowing your decision-making process to be more nimble. So are you confident you're maintaining your FSMA compliance? Are you protecting your brand, guarding against potential adulteration, monitoring incoming and outgoing ingredient quality? Are you following good manufacturing processes to ensure your process is in control? These are some of the questions that just kind of touch on the areas that need to be taken into account, and also the tools that you need to address. So if you're not already taking advantage of, yes?
Oh, sorry. Can you give us benchmarks for when to change slides just by saying next slide, please?
Yep, you're on the right slide. I'll let you know when to switch slides.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you're not already taking advantage of near-infrared technology, I definitely encourage you to consider it for a real-time solution. Near-infrared, or NIR, can be used as one of the tools to overcome the challenges in pet food production. It's commonly used to help screen materials for quality assurance purposes and is available to any pet food manufacturer. It's safe, it's reliable, and it rapidly analyzes raw materials, in-process materials, and finished products, providing real-time results. NIR allows producers to make quick and informed product adjustments, giving them tighter control over the manufacturing process. So quicker product and ingredient insights also helps manufacturers to optimize the use of their materials and ingredients, also reduces off-specification product, saving reprocessing and disposal costs. Near-infrared instruments are also rugged. They can be placed on the production floor close to production, again, minimizing that time to even take samples into the laboratory. With a cloud-based system, you can remove any concerns with lab-to-lab biases, regardless of how many manufacturing facilities in different geographic areas you need to align. This is because if the models are not local, but they're managed rather on one central server for shared use, you can achieve this goal. So near-infrared is a secondary technique, and it is calibrated by analyzing a set of known samples, with analysis time being less than 1 minute typically to achieve multiple trait results on a single sample or single scan. It provides real-time results that can be used to directly impact the manufacturing process. NIR can be used for quantitative analysis or determination of property concentrations, and also qualitative analysis or identification of raw materials, intermediate and finished products, and also for process control. So with a chemometrician developing and managing algorithms behind the scenes, the near-infrared instrument does not require a skilled technician to scan the samples. And with a cloud-based system, near-infrared offers data equivalency across manufacturing operations and across different geographical regions. Okay, Sarah, you can move to the next slide. So applications to consider for near-infrared spectroscopy vary by industry and can be custom designed to suit different companies and the specific products and needs. Both qualitative and quantitative or specific ingredient concentrations can be analyzed based on their importance in your specific process. Here are some ideas how near-infrared may pose a benefit to your process. Incoming raw materials can be analyzed to verify that suppliers are sending in-spec materials. The product mix can be analyzed by infrared to ensure that all ingredients were added correctly. Finished products can be analyzed to ensure product quality and to verify label claims. So proximate, or protein, moisture, fat, and fiber content, are the most common parameters tested via near-infrared. However, there are many other traits to consider, such as pH, percent cook, peroxide value, color, and the list goes on. Some exceptions are things to be aware of on verifying label claims according to the APSCO handbook are when it comes to trace amounts. So near-infrared is just not a good application to detect anything in the parts per billion level or in the lower parts per million levels. So for example, we can't expect near-infrared to be used as a tool to differentiate between two samples where one contains 300 parts per million of pure magnesium and the other contains 600. So we just want to make sure that you do know some of the limitations that go along with near-infrared, as well as the many benefits. Okay, next slide. So let's discuss some of the building blocks to achieve a robust, reliable near-infrared program. These include three real pillars: wet chemistry, instrumentation, and calibration, development, and maintenance. Eurofins can assist you with each of these blocks customized to your specific challenges. Next slide, please. So for wet chemistry, often expensive chemical reagents are needed, exposing lab personnel to potential hazards. There's also an environmental concern and costs associated with the chemicals and the test sample disposal. Other challenges include test method repeatability, technician to technician, and lab to lab biases. The majority of test methods required skilled laboratory technicians to run. Higher skill equates to higher wage rates. And then, of course, there is the waiting time. The first critical element with near-infrared can be summed up with garbage in, garbage out. Again, near-infrared is a secondary method, and algorithms or models will only be as good as the primary data or your wet chemistry that was used to build them in the first place. Have you selected the best fit primary testing method to evaluate your product? You will want to have this answered first because you need a sound building block to start out. Once you have your method selected, you'll want to know the repeatability and the reproducibility statistics of your primary data in that method, and then make a determination for what your target for performance for near-infrared will be. Next. So once you're confident with your primary data source, a selection of spectrometers should be trialed to determine the best fit instruments. There are extensive brand options out there and different types of NIR systems available on the market today. Of course, most instrument vendors are selling one platform or one type of near-infrared instrument, and of course, they'll be biased. So there is a need for a non-biased third-party opinion to help with the key factors to consider. Some of these, for example, might be, what is the optimal instrument and sampling device for my specific application needs, considering material types? How can I prove performance without making a capital investment? What are my needs for reproducibility, repeatability, and long-term performance? What environments, temperature, humidity, vibration in production will my instrument be exposed to? And how rugged does my spectrometer need to be? And lastly, user-friendliness. Ideally, the system should be operable by any plant operator. Next slide, please. Calibration, development, and management is the third pillar to a successful near-infrared program. How do I build a sufficient library of representative samples and good quality primary data to build the models, and who will manage the system and make improvements and adjustments once the system is in place to ensure robustness? You will need the services of an experienced chemometrician and a spectroscopic expert, which both are hard to come by, to build and maintain reliable methods. Oftentimes, near-infrared gets a bad rap because the models or algorithms one starts with are generic or out of the box. The models will need ongoing review and updating for a long-term solution and robustness. If not, your performance may start out reliable, but will deteriorate over time. So maintenance is the key for achieving robust quantitative calibrations for consistent performance. Having dedicated effort 24/7 for live technical support on your near-infrared program will provide a sound long-term solution. Maybe you already have a near-infrared system, but you've learned that the manufacturer is no longer going to support that specific system, or your company is merging with or expanding and involving another company, and the two of you have different near-infrared platforms but need some side-by-side testing comparison. Possibly you're using a system with a diode array technology and realize that Fourier transform, or FT, is more sensitive and will pick up finer details desired for your quality program. Good calibration curves are time consuming, and they definitely take a specific level of expertise to develop. Once these are developed, it is difficult to consider starting from scratch as well. Instead, you can look at transferring the models to a different platform to stay as current as possible with your near-infrared program and needs. And my last slide, please. So if you have a standalone benchtop NIR system and you're looking to move to the next level, an area you may want to consider our cloud-based system, and that's where algorithms are managed from a central server, allowing multiple factory locations to share the same models. This also allows for robust algorithms with consistent performance on multiple instruments, eliminating the concern with lab-to-lab bias. As long as an employee has login credentials and an internet connection and a mobile device, even a smartphone, they can have access to real-time near-infrared data. Eurofins QTA has patents surrounding both our model development and our cloud-based system. The next step to explore is an inline system, which would mitigate the need to take samples out of the production line to test a traditional benchtop unit. It also allows for better process controls, automation, and real-time trending. With a user-friendly interface, you can choose what location or locations you would like to run the scans at along the production line, what trait or traits you would like recorded, and the frequency of scanning you would like tested. So the system can be programmed to automatically scan up to 30 times an hour or every 2 minutes. With pet food recipes having, on average, 40 ingredients per formula, and inline analysis may be tricky and have some limitations because of the large number of ingredients, but it is worth considering. And this really wraps up my overview on using near-infrared technology. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Karen. And last but certainly not least, Todd Johnson, are you still on the line?
I am
still here. This is
one
of our most requested topics in our pet food pain points. We saved the best for last. People are very interested. So without further ado, Todd, take it over.
All right, thank you, Sarah. So thanks to everybody who's stayed with us throughout the whole presentation. I'm the Senior Business Development Manager for China Food Testing. My primary role at Eurofins is to guide U.S. companies through the various hurdles presented to them when doing business with China. Whether you're looking to export your products to China or import Chinese products to the U.S., hopefully today's discussion will help you better navigate. Next slide. So here's a short summary of the steps U.S. companies need for preparing to export pet food products and ingredients to be consumed in China. As you may know, China has its own set of standards referred to as GB standards. Companies should not assume that pet food products or ingredients that have been tested and approved to FDA or ISO standards will necessarily comply with China's GB standards. Similar tests should be performed. It's incumbent on the U.S. companies to have their pet food products tested before the shipment leaves for the U.S., from the U.S. to the China market. The last thing you want is for your shipment to be seized for improper documentation, testing, or lack of conformity. So here are 4 steps that we'll talk about to help you prepare. To complete your exporter and importer registration, complete set of documentation and pre-import licensing, ensuring label compliance, and a CIQ, Food Sanitary Inspection Customs Clearance. Next slide, please. So the first step is to check out the Certification and Accreditation Administration, CAA. It didn't put the web address in there, but it's cnca.gov.cn. It's a very informative website and is also in English. This certification of food and agricultural products plays an important role in China. China is striving to improve their implementation of food and agricultural producers standardization. They're trying to improve the management level of food safety and ensuring the quality and safety of all food and agricultural products. China has set up a unified, open, and competitive, well-organized certification system for food and agricultural products. And as of October 2015, it's mandatory for exporters to register each shipment of food products online with the Administration of Quality, Supervision, Inspection, and Quarantine for tracking purposes. The acronym for this organization is AQSIQ. Step 2 is to complete the documentation and pre-import licensing. Before the shipment of your products, you're required to submit documents on the product's quality, any quarantine, origin, import control, along with detailed packaging lists, description of your packaging material, and several other documents. These documents are reviewed only after the shipment reaches China. Therefore, you must ensure that all your documents are complete and authentic to avoid any delay or storage costs. Although the documentation requirements vary between product and product categories, you should plan to prepare the following documents to export pet food products into China. And I listed these products: commercial invoice. I won't go through the whole list, it's all there. Pay particular attention to the H, the sample of Chinese label. We'll talk about that more in detail. Next slide. Step 3, probably the most important step and the one that most U.S. companies have trouble with. So every food product imported into China has to be labeled in simplified Chinese characters to complete the customs clearance process. These general rules of labeling of prepackaged pet foods comes under GB 7718 2011 and specifies the labeling requirements on layout and content of prepackaged pet foods in China. In general, the label must provide the following: standard name of foodstuff, list of ingredients as a percentage, name of and address of manufacturer, production date, best before date, end date, and guidance for storage. Country of origin, quality grade, code of national standard or industry standard, and any special contents. All labels must be approved by the Chinese Inspection and Quarantine Service, the CIQS. As label standards in China are subject to change, I would advise you to consult an expert to ensure your compliance with these updated labeling requirements. It's very important to remember that not all English words translate well into Chinese. If you need this service or are concerned, certainly Eurofins can help you in this area. Step 4 is the CIQ, Food Sanitary Inspection and Customs Clearance. Once the shipment arrives in China, the food products are inspected by customs officials to review relevant shipping documents, labeling requirements. The CIQ sanitary certificate is issued only if the documents are complete and accurate. This certificate is issued for every shipment of product. If the shipment is missing documents and customs seizes it, you might either provide a CIQ declaration or provide the missing documents. This is where some companies get held up in determining how to file a CIQ declaration. You have to provide the following documents: your business license, if any, import license, quota certificate, safety declaration, and an introduction to your company and the product information in detail. If you have any concerns about this, Eurofins can help you on a consultative basis to navigate this difficult step. Regulations in China on imports vary across all food types and may not be consistently applied or enforced at different ports and bureaus or individual officers. I would advise all of you to allow additional time and money to resolve unexpected issues and work closely with local reliable partners. Next slide, please. So we're going to shift gears to the opposite version, which is importing food products from China, which is a little more straightforward. Besides testing, the question you have to answer is, besides testing the shipment upon arrival, what's the most efficient means I have to ensure with reasonable certainty that the product is authentic and as it's been ordered? What should be done? You need to obviously select the applicable testing standards, whether it be US, Europe, or China's GB standards, or all of the above. Make sure to have that product tested to support your product claims and authenticity. An example might be chew bones that claim to contain 10% meat content. This test needs to go on with regularity to ensure that each batch of chew bones meets the authenticity and claims that you're making. Ensure sampling integrity at the plant, at the port, or upon arrival in the U.S. We recommend third-party sampling when possible. Nutritional labeling. Does your product and ingredient comply with the U.S. labeling requirements? Please make sure you know what those requirements are. And then finally, one that's a little bit obvious, but where is your product intended to be consumed? Prop 65 in California has obviously some of its own regulations and any special regulatory requirements that apply to your product. Next slide, please. So talk about some of the common mistakes or things that happen in causing delay. Obviously, your improper import declaration, not being prepared properly with someone who doesn't know what they're doing, not understanding that as a first-time importer, you should always expect delays. Customs is typically going to take a lot longer to review the shipments in greater detail, and will relax those efforts over time as more imports go on record. You should hire a seasoned customs broker to make sure your documentation prep is correct and assist you in the import process. Some other things in the testing world that might cause delays, certain types of pet foods are difficult to homogenize. Know your products and know your lab's homogenization capacity or capability. Next slide. So I've listed a few key websites to visit for more information. It's definitely something I would encourage you to check out. And if there's any questions that you'd like to ask me now or offline, I believe my email will be included in the record. Thank you very much.
Yes, it will. And thank you, Todd, for all that excellent information. We got a lot of positive feedback in the comments throughout this third session, so we really appreciate everyone's kudos. This is our last question and answer session of our digital conference, so get those questions in. We have a few really good ones that I'll get started with, and then you can continue to submit questions throughout the entire Q&A. Our first one is, Michelle asked if Carrie and Brett, or anyone else on the line, can explain again the difference between moisture and active water in a product.
So moisture, and it kind of depends on what methodology you're using, but moisture is the amount of actual water that's in a product. Now, if you're using a loss on drying type of method to analyze for moisture, depending on the ingredients in the product, there could be some other things classified as moisture, such as volatiles. But the difference between moisture and water activity is moisture is the total amount of water, or like I just mentioned, water and volatiles or anything that will evaporate off that product, versus water activity is the amount of water that is not bound up in a substance. In other words, water activity is the amount of water available for microbes to use. So the moisture content is not necessarily indicative of the water activity in a finished product.
All right. And we had another question come in from our peanut gallery here. How, from an analytical perspective, would you respond to a hit, quote unquote, for salmonella?
Yes. So if we were to get a hit on salmonella, especially, like I said earlier, we're using those rapid detection methods. That's mainly what we're using the confirmation traditional cultural methods to do. We're going to ensure that it is actual live salmonella that can potentially go on to harm people, as well as eliminating any other organisms that may be similar to salmonella or could have also given you a false positive or what have you on that device, and then taking it through the steps to eliminate anything, as well as differentiate that from our own internal positive control salmonella strain to ensure that the salmonella that we've detected is, in fact, of that product and alive cells.
Someone just submitted a question. Sorry, I'm taking a moment to read it to make sure I understand. Would you recommend monitoring water activity in the final product or just during the production process?
Yeah, from our standpoint, it's more relevant to monitor that in the final product, just because there are certain, post-production, or I guess it really only matters in the final product, because the whole production process, there could be, steps later on in your process that help eliminate some of the additional water activity or free water available. So I would say your finished product is the most relevant to be testing.
Okay. Earlier on, someone submitted a question that was fairly specific, but Lars said he might be able to take a stab at it. They mentioned that there's been many reports of protein contamination of supposedly hypoallergenic diets with ingredients that are not listed on the label. What can be done in terms of manufacturing or manufacturer testing to prevent this?
The issue of contamination with proteins from other species than the ones indicated on the label is a very recurrent one. I agree with that. The best process you can have is, number one, check your ingredients as they come in. And Dan was talking about what we do down at in New Orleans by PCR or by ELISA-based methods to test for the presence of contaminating proteins in protein products. The other thing that causes a problem is the fact that when you normally try to make a hypoallergenic diet, you try to use hydrolyzed proteins, so you reduce the allergenicity of the proteins present. Sometimes what you're doing is when you have contaminating proteins, they have not been subjected to the same hydrolysis and therefore could have an issue. Also, what you need to be careful with when you get a protein hydrolysate, make sure that not only the soluble protein has been hydrolyzed, but also that the residues that are not into solution is also hydrolyzed below the level of concern that many people, I think, mention about between 6,000 to 9,000 Daltons. So in short, keep your supply line clean, verify your ingredients, and verify the degree of hydrolysis.
Okay. A question just came in from Nicole. A simple question. I'm not sure that it has a simple answer, but what do you recommend is the best indicator of secondary oxidation in most cases?
So I'll let Lars.
It is a very good question. We all fight it. I normally like to liken Rancidity as a Mississippi River. When it gets down to the delta, we don't know which path it's going to take. So if you're going to build a dam, which of the different sides of the river are you going to dam? It is so much a product-related question that different methods work best depending on what routes the Rancidity goes. I think it's a real issue. We're all fighting it, and there's no good and clean answer. I'm sorry.
All right, so that might be one where if you have a more specific question, submit that to us and we will follow up with you directly. I'll give everyone a few more minutes to submit any further questions before we wrap up, but this is a final reminder that the whole presentation has been recorded. So we will slice that up into 3 different sessions and send the videos out to everyone within the next 48 hours. You're also all going to get a copy of the slides that were presented today in a PDF format so that it's more shareable with your colleagues. If there's not any further questions at this time, I'm going to thank all of our presenters today by name: Brett, Chris, Gary, John, Carrie, Lars, Megan Syke, Pierce, Karen, Ray, and Todd. Thank you all so much for being on our presentation today. Their contact information will be included in our follow-up messages. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and have a wonderful rest of your day.